Hello and welcome to the third session of week 3, where we will be investigating the trends in ink painting that emerged toward the end of the Joseon period. We will look at the growth of the Southern School style of painting from the 19th century and the subsequent introduction of Western painting styles to Korea that greatly impacted traditional Eastern style painting from the onset of the 20th century. Both true view landscape painting and genre painting, which flourished during the late Joseon period, experienced a marked decline from around 1850 until the fall of the Joseon Dynasty. This shift can be attributed to the growing influence of the Southern School style of painting. Rooted in the concept of sayi, or freehand style, this approach prioritized capturing the deeper essence of a subject over its external appearance. The 19th century was a transformative period for Joseon Korea, marked by significant cultural exchanges with Qing China. Painting manuals imported from China began shaping the artistic techniques of Korean painters, leading to the rise of literati painting influenced by the Southern School. This period saw a noticeable decline in uniquely Korean painting styles, with realistic landscapes and genre paintings giving way to Southern School-inspired works. At the forefront of this movement was Kim Jung-hee, a scholar painter whose work became emblematic of this era. Kim Jung-hee excelled in calligraphy, poetry, and painting, and his influence extended beyond art to shape the intellectual life of late Joseon Korea. After traveling to Qing China at the age of 24, he encountered an extensive array of Qing Dynasty literature and art, which profoundly influenced his style. In calligraphy, he synthesized elements from various script styles, developing the distinctive Chusa style. In painting, he sought to convey the scholarly spirit, often drawing inspiration from his travels and intellectual pursuits. He studied the calligraphy of Chinese masters such as those as Jia Mingfu, Su Dongpo, and Yan Zhengqing, going as far back as the Han and Wei dynasties. He adopted the strength of these styles to create his own unique style, using seemingly clumsy yet refined and elevated brushwork. His works, such as Haeando, reflect a refined simplicity and a meditative detachment. The Southern School style, a significant tradition in East Asian art, was originally defined during the Ming Dynasty by Chinese art historian Dong Jichang. This style emphasized personal expression, philosophical depth, and spontaneity, often using ink wash techniques and informal compositions. Unlike the more technically precise Northern School style, Southern School paintings focus on symbolic subjects such as bamboo, plum blossoms, and landscapes, aiming to reflect the painter's inner spirit rather than physical reality. Kim Jung-hee adapted these principles to create a uniquely Korean interpretation of the Southern School style. His works were celebrated for their intellectual depth, simplicity, and introspection, making them particularly suited to literati painters who valued individual expression over decorative or realistic art. Kim's artistic philosophy, which emphasized the unity of painting and calligraphy, resonated with many literati painters. Among his notable followers were Jo Hee-ryong and Heo-ryun. Jo Hee-ryong was skilled in painting landscapes and the Four Gentlemen, but had a particular passion for plum blossoms. In this work, the plum blossom stem begins at the lower left, winding in a circular composition that ends at the center of the screen, demonstrating the artist's creativity and spontaneity. The starting point of the stem is depicted three-dimensionally, but it gradually becomes two-dimensional as it stretches outward. The stem is sharply angled with pointed tips, and freely scattered ink dots are sprinkled onto the screen, expressing freedom and rhythm. Heo-ryun was Kim Jung-hee's star pupil. Although he was skilled in various types of painting, he left a distinct legacy in landscape painting based on the compositions and brushworks of Hwang Gong-wang and Ye Chuan. He frequently used Chinese poems as inspiration for his works that employed rough, free-spirited brushstrokes of a split-tip brush and the delicate tones of light color washes. In addition to landscapes, his paintings of the Four Gentlemen, peonies, bamboo, rocks and old pines, and lotus flowers all executed with bold and skillful use of ink, demonstrate his artistic individuality, particularly in his later years. By the late 19th century, the Southern School style had overshadowed other artistic traditions, including true view landscapes and genre paintings that had previously celebrated local scenery and everyday life. Instead, the art scene shifted toward an interpretive approach, heavily influenced by Yuan, Ming, and Qing Dynasty Southern School paintings. While this transformation allowed Korean artists to explore philosophical themes and personal expression, it also led to the decline of uniquely Korean painting styles. The rise of the Chusa style and the Southern School of painting in late Joseon is a subject of ongoing debate. Supporters argue that it enriched Korean art by fostering a deeper intellectual and philosophical dimension, exemplified by Kim Jung-il's introspective works that imbued the literati style with a distinct Korean identity. Critics, however, contend that its dominance contributed to the erosion of indigenous styles found in true view painting and genre painting. Thus, while the Southern School of painting introduced new creative possibilities, it also highlighted the tensions between innovation and the preservation of local traditions in Korean art. Toward the end of the Joseon dynasty, Western painting styles began to influence Korean art. Before Korea opened its ports, contact with Western painting was indirect, mainly through paintings witnessed or brought back from China. Domestically, political turbulence marked the late 19th century, characterized by Regent Heungsan Daewongun's isolationist policies, the spread and persecution of Christianity, disruptions in the social hierarchy, and the rise of reformers toward the opening of ports, alongside reformist policies under King Gojong's direct rule. This rapidly changing environment set the stage for the direct importation of Western ideas, technology, and infrastructure, dramatically affecting the Korean art scene. As Korea officially opened up to Western influence, the traditional art of ink painting began to undergo a significant transformation. The influx of Western realism, perspective, and oil painting techniques had the most immediate impact, offering new possibilities that contrasted with traditional ink painting's emphasis on simplicity, monochromatic palettes, and philosophical themes. Landscapes displayed conspicuous influence on Western one-point perspective and realism. While traditional landscapes often use a stylized approach to represent nature, Western techniques enabled more realistic portrayals with accurate proportions and perspectives. This shift provided Korean artists with a new way to explore the natural world, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics. Celebrated court painter An Jung-sik actively experimented with Western perspectives in his paintings and studied Western weapons manufacturing in Tianjin in 1881, where he would have had access to Western-style drawings and new technology. While he respected traditional styles in his court paintings, he embraced new approaches in his personal works, especially as Japan's growing influence brought new artistic techniques to Korea from the 20th century. An's landscapes began to show a clearer sense of depth, experimenting with shading and brushstrokes to model forms more realistically, and differentiating foreground and background elements with greater clarity. An's work reflects a subtle shift towards realism and spatial awareness, although he did not fully adopt Western perspective techniques. His compositions demonstrated an evolving spatial awareness in line with the opening of Korean art to new ideas in the early 20th century. For instance, in the famous Spring Dawn of Baekaksan Mountain, the foreground and middle ground are depicted using the bird's eye view, while the background employs a high-angle perspective, a technique that presents the subjects as it's viewed from below, following the perspective techniques of traditional Korean landscape painting. Baekaksan Mountain is rendered using the mi-dot technique of the Southern School, characterized by horizontal brushstrokes created with a lying brush. And clouds that are strategically placed in the background are traditional visual elements that express depth and distance. Additionally, the depiction of trees and the pavilions of Gyeongbokgung Palace exhibits features typical of palace paintings. Meanwhile, modern characteristics are evident in the use of linear perspective and three-dimensional shading for the depiction of the bridge, main road, and Gyeongbokgung pavilions in front of Gwanghwamun Gate. These features emphasize a sense of depth through detailed and precise brushstrokes, realistically portraying objects and creating a profound spatial perspective. Also groundbreaking was the introduction of oil painting to Korea. Ko Hee-dong was the first Korean artist trained in European oil painting methods, who graduated from the Western-style painting division of the Tokyo School of Fine Arts. Ko brought back skills in realistic perspective, shading, and anatomical accuracy. Initially, Ko's new style met resistance from traditionalists, as ink painting was deeply connected to the literati's values of moral reflection and spiritual expression. Interestingly, Ko Hee-dong soon went back to ink painting when he returned to Korea. Despite being renowned as Korea's first oil painter and submitting a small number of oil paintings to exhibitions during his career, his ink paintings do not display any conspicuous influence from Western-style painting. Nevertheless, throughout the 20th century, Western styles gradually presented a direct challenge to the literati tradition of ink painting, which valued simplicity, personal expression, and intellectual engagement over realistic representation. Practiced by scholar officials, literati art was an extension of calligraphy and poetry, reflecting Confucian values of humility and restraint. Western realism conflicted with the literati ideal, which aimed to capture the spirit of a subject matter than its physical form. Moreover, as Japanese aesthetics dominated Korea during the colonial period, Western-style painting gained prominence as the more modern and progressive form of art compared to Eastern-style ink painting. In response, some artists tried to integrate Western techniques with traditional aesthetics, blending structure and composition without sacrificing the spontaneous quality of brushwork. Others rejected Western influence, believing that ink painting represented a uniquely Korean identity that should not be diluted by foreign styles. Let's revisit this theme in the following session. This lecture has provided an overview of the significant artistic trends in traditional Korean ink painting from the late Joseon period. We explored the rise of the Southern school style in the 19th century and its influence on the Korean art scene, as well as the transformative impact of Western painting techniques introduced in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. By understanding these developments, we can better appreciate the evolution of Korean ink painting and its response to changing artistic and cultural contexts during this pivotal period. In the next session, let's shift our focus to the attempts of Korean artists of the 20th century to modernize traditional ink painting.